The sky above Kellis Prime burned red. Commander Gren stood on the defense wall, his forearms gripping the metal railing until it bent. Below, thousands of black creatures swarmed across the mining colony's outer districts. The Vreth had arrived 3 days ago, and now everything was falling apart. "Sir, the east wall is failing," reported his second officer through the comm device. "We've lost another 50 soldiers." Gren's species, the Thalaxians, were known across the galaxy as strong warriors. But strength meant nothing against endless numbers. The Vreth didn't stop. They didn't retreat. They just kept coming, wave after wave, consuming everything in their path. "Pull everyone back to the inner city," Gren ordered. His voice was calm, but his hands shook. "We'll make our final stand there." As he turned to leave the wall, something caught his eye. In the center of the command post stood an ancient pillar, covered in symbols that nobody could read anymore. The mining crews had discovered it 6 months ago, buried deep underground. The archaeologists said it was old, very old, maybe 10,000 years or more. Gren walked to the pillar. At its base was a red crystal that pulsed with a faint light. The archaeologists had been afraid to touch it, afraid of what ancient technology might do. But now, with death crawling across his colony, Gren had nothing left to lose. He pressed his palm against the crystal. It blazed to life, bright as a star. Light shot upward from the pillar, piercing through the roof and into the sky. Then just as quickly it faded. Gren stumbled backward, his palm smoking slightly. "What did you do?" his second officer asked, running to his side. "I don't know," Gren admitted, "but the old tech said these pillars were left by the Guardians. If the legends are true, maybe they'll hear us." His officer's scales turned pale. "The Guardians are just stories we tell children. They're not real." Gren looked at the dead crystal. "Then we're already finished." 3 days passed. The Vreth pushed closer. The colony's defenders fought hard, but everyone knew the end was coming. Gren barely slept, coordinating evacuations and defense lines. On the 3rd night, an alarm woke him from a brief rest. "Unknown vessel entering the system," the sensor operator reported. "Single ship, medium size." "It's not responding to hails, is it, Vreth?" Gren asked, rushing to the command center. "No, sir. The signature is strange, old, really old." On the main screen, a ship appeared. It was sleek and gray, with markings that made Gren's breath catch. He'd seen those symbols before on the pillar. The archaeologists had shown him pictures from other ancient sites across the galaxy. "Open a channel," he ordered. All frequencies, static filled the room. Then a voice came through, speaking in perfect galactic standard. "This is Captain Minho of the human vessel Teguki. We received your distress call." "Permission to land?" The command center fell silent. Everyone stared at the screen. "Did he say human?" whispered the sensor operator. Gren's voice barely worked. "Permission granted. Landing Bay 3. 20 minutes later, Gren stood in the landing bay as the ship settled onto the platform. It was smaller than he expected, marked with scratches and repairs from countless battles. The boarding ramp lowered with a hiss of air. 5 figures walked down the ramp. They stood on 2 legs like many species, but something about them was different. They moved with easy confidence, their eyes taking in everything at once. They wore simple gray uniforms with no decoration except for names written on their chests. The one in front stepped forward. He was tall, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see right through Gren. "Commander Gren?" the human asked, extending one hand. "I'm Captain Minho, this is my crew. Tactical Officer Jiwan, Engineer Daehyun, Medical Officer Hana, and Pilot Sujin." Gren shook the offered hand, confused by the custom but following along. The human's grip was strong. "Very strong. You're real," Gren said stupidly. Minho smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We get that reaction a lot." "How bad is the situation?" "The Vreth control 60% of the colony. We have maybe 2,000 defenders left and 5,000 civilians in the inner city. At current rates, we have 3 days, maybe 4. The human woman named Jiwan stepped forward, pulling out a small device. "Show me your tactical maps." "All of them. But—" "I don't understand," Gren said. "The legends say humans disappeared 10,000 years ago. Where did you go?" Minho's expression grew sad. "We went home, Commander. After the war with the Devourers, after we helped the galaxy survive, the other species looked at us differently. They saw what we became to win that war. They saw what we were capable of. It scared them. So we made a choice. We left the galaxy to live in peace, but we left the beacons behind just in case. In case of what? In case someone needed us again." Dae-hyun, the engineer, was already examining the colony's defense systems. These weapons are inefficient. Too much focus on energy conservation. Not enough on stopping power. We use what the galaxy provides, Gren said defensively. That's your problem, Dae-hyun replied, not unkindly. You've forgotten how to fight species like the Vreth. We haven't. Hana, the medical officer, knelt beside a wounded soldier. Her hands moved quickly, applying some kind of foam to his injuries. The soldier's pain seemed to fade immediately. You're good with medicine, Gren observed. Humans have practice, Hana said. Our world taught us about pain, about injury, about survival. Sujin, the pilot, smiled at a group of children watching from a doorway. She waved at them and they shyly waved back. Ji-won looked up from her device. Captain, I've analyzed their defense pattern. It's terrible. Can we fix it? Minho asked. Yes, but we'll need full tactical control, and they're not going to like some of our methods. Minho turned to Gren. Commander, I know we just arrived. I know we're supposed to be legends, not real. But if you want to save this colony, you need to let us do what we do best. And what's that? Gren asked. Fight. Gren looked at the 5 humans. 5 people against thousands of Vreth. It was insane. But something in their eyes, something hard and determined, made him believe. What do you need? He asked. Minho's smile turned sharp. Access to your weapons depot, your manufacturing facilities, and complete tactical authority. Also, we need to send a message back to human space. Our main fleet is coming, but they're weeks away. We need to hold until they arrive. 5 of you against the Vreth horde, Gren said. For weeks. Commander, Ji-won said, not looking up from her device. Humans held Earth against worse. The Vreth are aggressive, but they're predictable. We've dealt with swarm tactics before, many times. On your world? Gren asked. On our world, in our seas, in our forests, even in our cities, Hana said. Earth is not a gentle place. It made us hard. It made us survivors. Gren made his decision. The colony is yours to defend, Captain. Tell me what you need. Minho nodded. Then let's get to work. The Vreth won't wait for us to prepare. As the humans spread out to begin their preparations, Gren watched them with wonder and fear. The legends had returned. The old stories spoke of humans as terrible warriors, unstoppable and fierce, but they also spoke of humans as protectors, as guardians who would sacrifice everything to save others. He just hoped the legends were right about both. The war room filled with officers from different species. Gren had called together every commander still alive in the colony. They stood around the central table, looking at the holographic map that showed the Vreth advancing from all sides. Most faces showed fear. Some showed resignation. They all expected to die here. Then the humans walked in. Ji-won moved to the head of the table without asking permission. She swept her hand across the display and the map changed. New symbols appeared, showing firing lanes and fallback positions that made no sense to anyone watching. Your current defense is failing because you're fighting the wrong way, she said bluntly. You're trying to hold every position at once. That's exactly what the Vreth want. A Thalaxian commander bristled. We defend our people. Every district we lose means more civilians dead. Every soldier you lose means less protection for anyone, Ji-won countered. The Vreth are a swarm species. They rely on numbers and aggression. You fight them by controlling their movement, funneling them into kill zones and making every meter they advance cost them dearly. We've tried that, another officer said. They just keep coming. Because you're not being creative enough, Dae-hyun said, stepping forward. He projected images of strange devices. These are human weapons. Simple, reliable, and very effective. We call these landmines. These are directional explosives. These are automated turrets. We don't need soldiers standing in the open trading shots. We need to make the Vreth walk into death traps. That's dishonorable, one officer protested. Minho's expression hardened. Honor is for duels between warriors. This is survival. The Vreth won't show you honor. They'll eat your people and move on to the next world. We're not here to fight fairly. We're here to win. The room fell silent. Finally, Gren spoke. Show us how. For the next 4 hours, the humans reorganized the entire defense. They abandoned the outer districts completely, pulling all forces back to prepared positions. Dae-hyun and his engineering teams worked through the night, installing human weapons throughout the inner city. They weren't elegant. They were blocks of explosive connected to simple triggers. They were rotating guns controlled by basic computers. They were tripwires and pit traps and 100 other things that seemed primitive. Why don't you use energy weapons? A galactic engineer asked Daehyun. Energy weapons are good, Daehyun said, connecting wires to a detonator. But they need power cells, cooling systems, and complex parts. These? He patted the explosive. These need someone to step on them. They work in any weather, any condition, and they don't need maintenance. Simple is better. But the galaxy has better technology. Better for what? Daehyun interrupted. For looking impressive? These weapons have one job, kill the enemy. They do it well. That's all that matters. As night fell, the Vreth launched their attack. They came in massive numbers. Thousands of black bodies flowing like a dark river toward the human defense lines. The galactic soldiers gripped their weapons nervously, remembering how previous defenses had crumbled. The Vreth hit the first line of abandoned buildings. Nothing happened. They pushed deeper, growing more aggressive. Then they reached the kill zone. The explosives detonated in sequence timed perfectly by Ji-won's calculations. Buildings collapsed. Flames roared through prepared channels. The automated guns opened fire, their simple computers tracking movement and firing without pause or fear. The Vreth advance stopped, confused by the sudden carnage. Now, Minho said calmly into the comm. Human weapons called mortars fired from behind the walls. The shells arced through the air and landed in the middle of the Vreth swarm. More explosions ripped through their ranks. They're regrouping, Ji-won reported, adjusting formation. They'll try to flank us. Let them, Minho said. Daehyun prepared surprises on the flanks too. The battle continued through the night. The Vreth tried every approach, but the humans had predicted them all. When the Vreth went underground, they found collapsed tunnels. When they tried to climb the walls, they met electric barriers that Daehyun had rigged from the colony's power grid. When they attempted a direct assault, they walked into overlapping fields of fire that cut them down by hundreds. Gren watched from the command center in amazement. We're actually holding them. Of course we are, Sujin said cheerfully. She was monitoring the battle from multiple screens, coordinating the defense with calm efficiency. Humans fought insects on Earth for thousands of years. Big ones, small ones, flying ones, burrowing ones. We learned how they think, how they move, how to kill them efficiently. But the Vreth are intelligent, Gren protested. They have a hive mind. So do ants, Sujin replied. So do bees. Collective intelligence isn't new to us. It's just bigger here. As dawn broke, the Vreth pulled back. Bodies covered the ground in front of the human defenses. The galactic soldiers cheered, unable to believe they'd survived. Minho didn't celebrate. They'll be back tonight. Probably with different tactics. You think they learned? Gren asked. Of course they learned. But so did we. Ji-won analyzed their attack patterns. Find the weakness in their adaptation. Daehyun, I need those automated systems upgraded. They'll try to disable them next time. The day passed in frantic preparation. Galactic soldiers who had been terrified now worked alongside the humans with new hope. They watched Daehyun work, amazed at how he could build deadly weapons from simple materials. They listened to Ji-won explain tactics, understanding for the first time that warfare wasn't about honor or bravery alone. It was about thinking, planning, and using every advantage. Hana set up a medical station in the command center. Wounded soldiers arrived constantly, and she treated them with supplies that seemed miraculous. Broken bones were set with hardening foam. Deep cuts were sealed with medical adhesive. Pain was managed with injections that worked on multiple species. How do you know so much about alien biology? A Thalaxian doctor asked, watching her work. Humans studied every species we met, Hana said, inserting an IV line into a wounded soldier's arm. We had to. We're naturally curious, but also, we learned that to help people, you need to understand them, down to their cells, their chemistry, their pain responses. We took that knowledge with us when we left. You could have used it to hurt us instead. Hana looked up, her expression serious. Yes, we could have. That's why we left. We became too good at hurting things. We needed time to remember how to heal. That night, the Vreth attacked again. This time they came differently, more cautiously, probing for weaknesses. They found some. Automated guns that had been disabled. Explosives that had been triggered already. They pushed into these gaps, flowing around obstacles like water. They're adapting faster than expected, Ji-won reported. Then we adapt faster, Minho said. He activated his personal comm. All units switched to Protocol Delta. Daehyun, release the drones. Small flying machines, each no bigger than a hand, swarmed out from hidden positions. They carried no weapons, just cameras and speakers. They flew among the Vreth and suddenly sound filled the battlefield. Horrible sounds. Screeching metal, howling wind, and underneath it all a deep vibration that made everyone's chest hurt. The Vreth formation broke. Creatures stumbled, confused, their coordination failing. Sonic disruption, Dahyun explained to a confused galactic officer. We studied their communication method. It's partially sound-based. We're jamming it. They can't coordinate properly now. That's brilliant, the officer breathed. That's human, Dahyun corrected. Minho led a strike team into the confused Vreth swarm, 5 humans in simple armor, carrying weapons that seemed too heavy for their size. They moved through the darkness like they were born to it, each one covering the others, their movements synchronized perfectly. Gren watched through drone cameras and felt his scales prickle. The humans fought differently than any species he'd seen. They didn't charge bravely. They advanced methodically, checking corners, using cover, never exposing themselves unnecessarily. When they fired, they didn't miss. When the Vreth came at them in overwhelming numbers, they fell back to prepared positions and used the terrain to their advantage. One human got injured, taking a Vreth claw to the shoulder. Gren expected him to fall to need evacuation. Instead, the human just grunted, put some kind of foam on the wound, and kept fighting. The injury that would have crippled a Thalaxian barely slowed the human down. How? Gren whispered. Sujin heard him. Humans are tough. Our world made us that way. High gravity means strong bones. Dangerous predators means fast healing. Diseases and poisons means resistant bodies. We're built to survive. The battle raged until dawn. When the Vreth finally retreated, they left behind even more bodies than before. The galactic defenders had suffered casualties, but far fewer than anyone expected. The humans had lost no one. Minho returned to the command center, his armor scratched but intact. They'll try something new tomorrow. They're learning that direct assault won't work. How long can we hold? Gren asked. As long as we need to, Minho said simply. That's what humans do. We hold. And watching him, covered in the evidence of battle but still standing strong, Gren began to understand why the old legends had painted humans as both terrifying and inspiring. They were warriors who refused to quit, who adapted to any threat, who turned survival into an art form. The legends hadn't exaggerated. 6 days after the humans arrived, the situation began to change. The Vreth were learning faster than expected. They stopped attacking in predictable waves. Instead, they hit multiple positions at once, testing the defenses, looking for patterns. Casualties among the galactic defenders rose steadily. Gren stood in the medical bay, watching Hana work on another wounded soldier. The young Thalaxian had taken 3 Vreth claws to his chest. By all rights, he should be dead. Hana's hands moved quickly, her face calm despite the severity of the injuries. Will he live? Gren asked. Yes, Hana said, not looking up. But he won't fight again for weeks. That's the problem, Commander. Your people are brave. But they're not built for sustained combat like this. They get hurt, they go down. We're running out of soldiers. And humans don't. Hana glanced at him. Humans get hurt just like everyone else. We just don't let it stop us as easily. Evolution, Commander. On Earth, if you stayed down when injured, something ate you. We learned to keep moving. That night, Dahyun made a discovery that changed everything. He was working on the colony's main power core, trying to boost output for the defense systems. What he found made him call Minho immediately. Captain, you need to see this, Dahyun said over the comm. Minho arrived in the power station 10 minutes later. Dahyun stood before a massive reactor pointing at the readouts. This reactor is old, Dahyun explained. Really old. But it's powerful. More powerful than anything they're using it for. Can we use it for weapons? Minho asked. Better than that. I can overload it in a controlled way. Create an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disable every Vreth bioship in orbit. Without orbital support, the ground forces will be cut off from reinforcements. Minho studied the readouts. What's the catch? Someone has to stay here to manage the overload. The timing has to be perfect or it either fails or destroys the whole colony. It's a one-way trip. Minho's expression darkened. No, Captain, I said no, Dahyun. We're not doing suicide missions. That's not who we are anymore. Find another way. Dahyun looked like he wanted to argue, but he nodded instead. I'll work on it. As Minho left the power station, he found Gren waiting outside. I heard, the commander said. If Daehyun can't find another way, I'll volunteer. This is my colony, my people. With respect, Commander, you'd just die faster, Minho said. The radiation alone would kill you in minutes. A human might last long enough to complete the sequence, so you'll let one of your people die? Minho stopped walking. When he spoke, his voice was hard. 10,000 years ago, humanity fought a war that nearly destroyed us. We won, but we lost billions. We learned that martyrdom is easy. Survival is hard. We learned that dying for a cause sounds noble, but living to fight another day saves more lives. So no, I won't let my people die. Not if there's any other option. But if there's no other option? Minho was silent for a long moment. Then I'll do it myself. I'm the captain. That's my responsibility. Before Gren could respond, alarms blared throughout the colony. Jiwon's voice came over the speakers. All units to battle stations. Major Vreth assault incoming. This is not a drill. The command center erupted into controlled chaos. On the displays, thousands of Vreth signatures appeared, moving toward the colony from every direction. More than had ever attacked before. They're committing everything, Jiwon said, her fingers flying across her console. This is their final push. Status of our defenses? Minho asked, moving to her side. 70% operational. We've lost too much equipment in the daily attacks. We can hold the inner city, but the outer defenses will fall. Then we let them fall. Pull everyone back. Daehyun, are those final preparations ready? Yes, sir. The inner wall is rigged. When they come through, they'll get a surprise. The Vreth hit the outer defenses like a black tide. The automated weapons fired until their ammunition ran out, then fell silent. The explosives detonated in sequence, but there were too many Vreth for it to matter. They pushed forward, climbing over their own dead, driven by the hive mind's determination. The galactic defenders fell back in organized retreat, following human training. They didn't panic, didn't break formation. They'd learned from Jiwon's teaching that retreat wasn't cowardice. It was strategy. The Vreth flooded into the outer city, spreading through abandoned streets. They found nothing. No civilians, no supplies, no defenders, just empty buildings and silence. They're confused, Sujin reported from her monitoring station. The hive mind expected resistance. It's trying to figure out our plan. Let it wonder, Minho said. Wait until they're fully committed. 10,000 Vreth filled the outer city. 20,000, 30,000. They kept coming, pouring through the breached walls, filling every street and building. Then they saw the inner wall, and behind it the defenders waiting. The Vreth charged forward. Now, Minho said quietly. Every building in the outer city exploded simultaneously. Daehyun had rigged them all, turning the entire district into one massive trap. The explosions linked together, creating a firestorm that consumed everything. The Vreth had no time to react. Thousands died in seconds. The shockwave hit the inner wall, but it held. When the smoke cleared, the outer city was gone. Just rubble and flames and the bodies of countless Vreth. But it wasn't enough. More Vreth came, climbing over the ruins, driven forward by the hive mind. They reached the inner wall and began climbing it, using their claws to find purchase in the stone. All defenders, open fire, Jiwon commanded. The inner wall lit up with weapons fire. The galactic defenders fought with everything they had, inspired by the humans who stood beside them. Minho himself was on the wall, firing a simple projectile weapon that never seemed to miss. A section of the wall collapsed under the weight of attacking Vreth. They poured through the gap, shrieking their victory. Then they ran straight into Daehyun's last surprise. The ground beneath them opened up, revealing a pit filled with the colony's industrial chemicals. The Vreth fell in by hundreds, their screams filling the air, but still they came. The defenders began to fall back step by step. The medical bay filled with wounded. Ammunition ran low. Everyone knew the end was approaching. Gren found Minho on the command center balcony, looking at the battle with dark eyes. We're losing, Gren said simply. I know. Your fleet won't arrive in time. I know. Then what do we do? Minho turned to face him. We do what humans always do, Commander. We fight until we can't fight anymore. Then we fight some more. That's insane. That's humanity. Minho activated his comm, switching to a frequency that connected to his ship. Sujin, I'm authorizing Protocol Indomitable. Execute when ready. Sujin's voice came back steady despite what she was being asked to do. Understood, Captain. It's been an honor serving with you. The honor was mine, Minho replied. Gren grabbed his arm. What's Protocol Indomitable? The Teguki is rigged to overload its reactor. Sujin will fly it into the largest Vreth bioship in orbit. The explosion will chain through their fleet, crippling their orbital support. But your ship is just a ship. Ships can be replaced, and Sujin will evacuate in a drop pod before impact, probably, if she times it right. Probably. Minho's smile was sad. Nothing in war is certain, Commander. You do your best and hope it's enough. The Teguki lifted off from the landing bay, its engines glowing bright. It climbed toward the sky, accelerating past the planet's atmosphere, heading toward the Vreth fleet that hung in orbit. On the ground, the defenders watched their last hope fly away. They didn't know what Minho had ordered. They just knew the humans were doing something desperate. The Vreth sensed weakness. They pressed their attack harder, throwing themselves at the defenders in suicidal waves. The inner city's defenses began to crumble. In the command center, Jiwon worked frantically to coordinate the defense. Daehyun armed every last weapon they had. Hana prepared the medical bay for mass casualties. And Minho stood watching the tactical display, waiting for the moment that would decide everything. In orbit, Sujin guided the Teguki toward the largest Vreth bioship. The alien vessel was massive, covered in organic armor and pulsing with biological weapons. It was the flagship of the Vreth invasion, the hub from which the hive mind coordinated the entire assault. Almost there, Sujin muttered to herself, dodging incoming fire. Just a little closer. The Teguki's reactor began its overload sequence. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. The ship shook as power built to catastrophic levels. Sujin lined up her approach aimed directly at the bioship's center mass. Then she activated the emergency pod and ejected, her small escape craft tumbling away just as the Teguki struck. The explosion was visible from the surface, a new star blooming in the sky. The Teguki's reactor detonated with enough force to vaporize the bioship instantly. The blast wave spread through the Vreth fleet, overloading their organic systems, causing ship after ship to fail. On the ground, every Vreth suddenly stopped moving. Without orbital coordination, the hive mind lost coherence. Individual creatures stood confused, their collective intelligence shattered. Now, Minho shouted. All units advance. Hit them while they're disorganized. The defenders surged forward, no longer fighting an endless tide but confused individual creatures. The battle turned in moments. What had been certain defeat became sudden victory, but Minho wasn't celebrating. The search for Sujin took 3 hours. When they finally found her pod crashed in the outer ruins, Minho personally led the recovery team. The pod had landed hard, its systems barely functional. Inside, Sujin was unconscious but alive, her body protected by the pod's emergency systems. Hana treated her injuries in the medical bay while Minho watched. She'll be fine, Hana said. Broken arm, concussion, and some bruising. Nothing that won't heal. She's lucky, Gren said from the doorway. Luck had nothing to do with it, Minho replied. She calculated the ejection timing perfectly. That's skill. The victory over the Vreth ground forces was complete, but everyone knew it was temporary. The orbital fleet was damaged, not destroyed. More Vreth ships were gathering at the edge of the system, preparing for another assault. The colony had days at most before the next attack. We need the main fleet, Jiwon said during the command meeting. 5 of us can't hold against another full-scale invasion. The last message said they were still 2 weeks away, Daehyun added. Then we make do, Minho said. We've bought time. Now we use it. Fortify everything. Build new weapons. Train more defenders. When the Vreth come back, we make them pay for every meter. But fate had other plans. 2 days later, the sensor alarms went off again. Everyone rushed to the command center, expecting to see Vreth ships. Instead, the display showed something else entirely. Space itself seemed to tear open. Massive ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, one after another, filling the space around Kellis Prime. Not 5 ships. Not 20. 50 human warships of different sizes and purposes. At the center of the formation was a massive vessel, bigger than any ship Gren had ever seen. Its hull was marked with human symbols and bore a name in their language, Soul's Fury. They came early, Sujin whispered from her medical bed. Her arm was in a cast, but she was smiling. The fleet actually came early. A communication came through on all frequencies, a woman's voice speaking with absolute authority. This is Admiral Kyungmin of the Human Guardian Fleet. We received reports of the situation at Kellis Prime. and accelerated our arrival. All Vreth forces in this system, you have one chance. Leave now or be destroyed. The Vreth bioships didn't retreat. They accelerated toward the human fleet, their organic weapons charging for battle. They had conquered dozens of species. They had never met something they couldn't defeat through numbers and aggression. They were about to learn. All ships, Admiral Kyungmin commanded. Weapons free. Show them why we're called Guardians. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. Ships that should have been too large to maneuver quickly darted through space like fighters. Their weapons weren't the elegant energy beams common in the galaxy. They were kinetic projectiles, explosive missiles, and weapons that seemed primitive until they struck. A Vreth bioship tried to close with a human destroyer. The destroyer fired a single large projectile that punched through the bioship's armor and detonated inside. The entire vessel came apart, its organic structure unable to contain the explosion. Another Vreth ship tried to use biological weapons, spraying acid and spores across the vacuum. The human ship's armor simply shrugged it off. The metal alloys designed to withstand far worse than organic attacks. They're not even scratched, Gren breathed, watching the battle from the surface. Human ships are built for war, Minho explained. Not exploration, not trade. War. Heavy armor, redundant systems, weapons that can keep firing even when damaged. The galaxy forgot how to build warships. We didn't. The battle lasted 30 minutes. When it was over, the Vreth fleet was scattered debris. Not a single human ship had been destroyed, though several showed damage. Admiral Kyungmin's face appeared on the main display. She was older than Minho. Her hair touched with gray, her eyes sharp and calculating. Behind her, the bridge of the Soul's Fury bustled with activity. Captain Minho, she said. Report. Colony is secure, Admiral. Some damage, but all civilians are safe. We lost no personnel. Good. We're sending down Marine units to establish a permanent defense. I want to meet with you and the local commander in 1 hour. 1 hour later, Gren stood in his own command center feeling very small. Admiral Kyungmin had brought a full staff, including various officers and specialists. Among them were 2 Marines in powered armor, Sergeant Heejin and Corporal Woojin, who stood at attention like statues. Commander Gren, Kyungmin said, shaking his hand with the same firm grip all humans seem to have. Your colony showed great courage. I've read Captain Minho's reports. You trusted us when we were just legends. That says much about your character. I had no choice, Admiral. We were dying. There's always a choice. You could have surrendered. Some species do. She turned to a holographic display. But we're not here to discuss the past. We're here to discuss the future. The display showed the galaxy, with markers indicating Vreth attacks across multiple sectors. The Vreth have hit 15 systems in the last month, Kyungmin explained. They've consumed 3 worlds completely. Billions dead. The Galactic Council has been trying to fight them using conventional forces. It's not working. Because they don't know how, Minho said. Exactly. The galaxy has had peace for too long. They've forgotten that sometimes peace must be defended with strength. Kyungmin looked at Gren. That's why we're back, Commander. Not to conquer. Not to rule. But to defend. I don't understand, Gren said. You left because the galaxy feared you. Now you return and expect us to accept you? No, Kyungmin replied. We expect you to use us. Humanity will form a guardian fleet. We'll patrol the dark spaces, watch for threats, and respond when species like the Vreth appear. But we won't interfere in galactic politics. We won't take sides in your disputes. We'll simply be the shield. And if we refuse, then more worlds die. More species fall. Eventually, the Vreth or something worse will consume everything. Kyungmin's expression softened slightly. We understand your fear, Commander. 10,000 years ago, the galaxy saw what we became to win the war against the Devourers. We were terrible, efficient, unstoppable. It scared everyone, including us. That's why we left. We needed to remember how to be more than just warriors. And have you? Gren asked. Remembered? Kyungmin smiled. My ships have libraries full of poetry, art galleries, music halls. Every ship has teachers who educate our children in philosophy and ethics. Yes, Commander, we've remembered. But we've also remembered something else. Sometimes to protect the poets and artists, you need warriors. A communication interrupted them. A young human officer appeared on screen looking nervous. Admiral, the Galactic Council is requesting immediate communication. They've heard about our arrival. Put them through, Kyungmin ordered. The display changed to show several alien faces, representing different species and governments. They looked shocked, confused, and afraid. Admiral Kyungmin, one of them said. Is it true? Have humans returned to the galaxy? Yes, Council member. We received a distress call from Kellis Prime. We responded. You had no authority. We had the authority of species facing extinction, Kyungmin interrupted. We had the authority of the ancient pacts made when our ancestors fought alongside yours. Or have you forgotten those agreements? The council members looked uncomfortable. Finally, another spoke. The legends say humans are dangerous, that your weapons are terrible, that you fight without mercy. All true, Kyungmin agreed. We are dangerous. Our weapons are designed to kill efficiently. We fight to win, not to look good. But we're also the reason your species survived the Devourers. We're the reason the galaxy had 10,000 years of peace, and now we're back because that peace is threatened. We don't need 3 worlds consumed, Kyungmin said sharply. Billions dead. Your fleets are failing. Your defense strategies aren't working. You need us whether you want to admit it or not. The council members conferred quietly. Finally, one spoke. What do you want? We want to establish the Guardian fleet. We'll operate independently, responding to existential threats. We won't interfere in local conflicts or politics. We'll simply defend against species like the Vreth. And if we refuse, then we defend anyway. The beacons were activated. We answered. That's what we do, more conferring. Then, we need time to discuss this. Take your time, Kyungmin said. But while you discuss, we'll be hunting down the remaining Vreth forces in this sector. When you're ready to make it official, contact us. She cut the communication before they could respond. That was bold, Gren said. That was necessary, Kyungmin replied. The galaxy has spent 10,000 years convinced that problems can be solved through discussion and compromise. Sometimes they can, but not with species like the Vreth, not with threats that want to consume you. She turned to Minho. Captain, you and your crew will remain here for now. Help rebuild, train their defenders, show them how to protect themselves, yes. Admiral, Kyungmin looked at Gren. Commander, your colony will be the first world to officially host the Guardian fleet. We'll establish a base here with your permission. It will be a symbol, proof that humans and galactics can work together. Gren thought about everything that had happened. The desperate fight, the incredible humans who had refused to let his people die, the fleet that had come to save them. You have my permission, Admiral, and my thanks. Save your thanks for when the job is done. 3 months after the battle, Kellis Prime looked completely different. The ruins had been cleared away. New buildings stood where the Vreth had destroyed the old ones. In the center of the colony, a memorial had been built. Names were carved into black stone. Galactic names and human names together. The defenders who had fallen remembered forever. Gren stood before the memorial reading the names. Behind him, construction continued on the new Guardian fleet base. Human engineers worked alongside galactic crews, sharing knowledge and techniques. The fear was gone now. In its place was something new. Respect. Understanding. Hope. Beautiful morning, Minho said, walking up beside him. Every morning is beautiful when you thought you'd never see another one, Gren replied. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the colony wake up. Children played in the streets. Markets opened. Life continued as it always did, even after terrible things. Your people are leaving soon, Gren said. Most of them. Ji-won is transferring to the fleet headquarters. Daehyun got assigned to the engineering corps. Sujin will be training new pilots. And you? I'm staying for a while longer. Admiral Kyungmin wants someone here to coordinate with the local government. Apparently I'm good at that, Gren smiled. You're terrible at it, actually. But you care. And that matters more. Hana was at the medical center teaching a class of galactic doctors. They gathered around her, taking notes as she explained human medical techniques. The key is understanding that every species has different pain tolerances, she said, pointing to a chart. What hurts a Thalaxian might barely affect a Korthan. You have to adjust your treatments accordingly. A young Thalaxian doctor raised his hand, but humans seem to ignore pain entirely. How do you do that? We don't ignore it, Hana corrected. We just learn to function through it. Pain is information. It tells you something is wrong. But on Earth, stopping to deal with every injury meant death. So we evolved to keep moving despite pain. It's not better, just different. After the class, she found Gren waiting outside. Commander, she greeted. How can I help you? I wanted to thank you personally, he said. The medical exchange program you started has saved dozens of lives already. Injuries that would have killed people before are now treatable. That's why we're here, Hana replied. Humans are good at fighting, yes. But we're also good at healing. The galaxy only remembers the first part. We want them to remember both. Across the colony, Daehyun stood in an engineering workshop with a group of galactic students. They were building a simple device, just a water purification system. But Daehyun taught them the human way. Simple parts. Reliable function. Easy to repair. Your technology is so advanced, one student complained. Why do you use such basic methods? Advanced doesn't mean better, Daehyun said. This purifier will work for 50 years with minimal maintenance. Your advanced version needs constant power, regular part replacement, and technical support. Which one helps more people? The student thought about that. The simple one. Exactly. Humans learned that the best solution is the one that actually works, not the one that looks impressive. After the class, he met with other engineers to discuss the Guardian Fleet base construction. They shared ideas freely, humans and galactics working together to create something new. Sujin ran the pilot training academy from a converted warehouse. Inside, simulators lined the walls, each one running scenarios that taught basic and advanced flying techniques. She walked between them, offering advice and encouragement to pilots from a dozen different species. You're pulling too hard on the turns, she told a Korthan pilot. Feel the ship. Work with it, not against it. The pilot tried again, and this time the simulated ship moved smoothly through the course. Better, Sujin said with a smile. Much better. A group of children watched from the observation area. They came every day to watch the pilots train. Sujin always made time to talk with them, to answer their questions, to show them that humans weren't scary monsters from old stories. Miss Sujin, one child asked, is it true humans come from a dangerous world? Very dangerous, Sujin said. Earth has storms that can destroy cities, earthquakes that reshape continents, predators that hunt in packs. But it's also beautiful. We have oceans full of life, forests that stretch forever, mountains that touch the sky. The danger made us strong, but the beauty taught us why strength matters. Meanwhile, Jiwon worked in the command center, training the next generation of tactical officers. Her students came from across the galaxy, sent by their governments to learn human military doctrine. War is not about fighting, she told them. It's about thinking. Every battle is a problem to solve. You gather information, analyze enemy behavior, predict their moves, and create a solution. Sometimes that solution is diplomacy. Sometimes it's economics. Sometimes it's force. But always you think first, one officer raised his hand. But humans are known for aggression, for fighting without hesitation. We fight without hesitation when fighting is necessary, Jiwon corrected. But we spend far more time trying to avoid fights. That's the secret the legends don't tell you. Humans are good at war because we hate it. We studied it, perfected it, so that when we must fight, we can end it quickly and go back to peace. The Galactic Council officially recognized the Guardian Fleet a month after the battle. The ceremony was held on a neutral station, with representatives from hundreds of species attending. Admiral Kyungmin stood before them all, accepting the formal charter that made humanity's role official. We accept this responsibility, she said. But we also offer a promise. The Guardian Fleet will defend against existential threats. We will not interfere in your governments, your disputes, or your development. We are not rulers. We are not conquerors. We are simply what our name says, guardians. Not everyone was happy about it. Some species still feared humans. Some resented their return. But most understood that the alternative was worse. The Vreth had proven that the galaxy needed protectors who understood violence, who could fight when fighting was necessary. Back on Kellis Prime, Minho received a private message from Admiral Kyungmin. It was marked classified, meant only for senior officers. He read it in his quarters, his expression growing dark. The message contained sensor data from the galactic rim. Energy signatures that matched records from 10,000 years ago. The Devourers. They were waking up. Minho erased the message and went to find Gren. He found the commander at the memorial again, a place he visited every day. Commander, I need to tell you something, Minho said. I already know, Gren replied. Admiral Kyungmin briefed me this morning. The Devourers are coming back. Then you know we might have to leave again. To fight them. I know. Gren turned to face him. But this time you won't be alone. The galaxy will fight alongside you. Will they? Last time, when they saw what we became to win, they cast us out. Last time, they didn't understand. They saw your weapons, your efficiency, your willingness to do terrible things. They didn't see why. Now they do. Gren gestured to the colony around them. You came when we called. You fought when we were dying. You stayed to help us rebuild. The galaxy sees that. They see that humans are not just warriors. You're teachers, healers, friends. That might not be enough when the real war starts, Minho said quietly. Maybe not, but it's a start. That evening, Minho gathered his crew in their ship. The Taiguchi had been repaired and upgraded, ready for new missions. They sat around the common table, sharing a meal in the human tradition. I got my new assignment, Jiwon said. Fleet intelligence. They want me to analyze the Devourer threat. I'm joining the engineering research division, Daehyun added. They want to develop new weapons, new defenses. Apparently, my primitive methods impress someone. I'll be running the medical training program, Hana said, teaching galactic doctors human techniques. It's important work. And I get the academy, Sujin said cheerfully, teaching younglings to fly. Not as exciting as combat, but more rewarding. They all looked at Minho. I'm staying here, he said, coordinating between the fleet and local governments, making sure both sides understand each other. It's diplomatic work, which I hate, but someone has to do it. So we're splitting up, Jiwon said. We're spreading out, Minho corrected, doing what we do best in different places. But we're still a crew, still a team. They raised their glasses in the human custom, drinking to friendship and the future. Outside, the stars shone bright. Among them, human ships patrolled, keeping watch over worlds that had once forgotten they existed. The Guardian fleet was small now, just 50 ships, but it would grow. More humans were returning from their hidden worlds, answering the call to defend the galaxy once more. On Earth, in the human home system that most galactics had never seen, shipyards worked constantly. New vessels were being built, weapons were being forged, soldiers were being trained. Humanity was preparing for the war they knew was coming, but they were also preparing for peace. Schools taught galactic languages and cultures. Scientists studied alien biology and technology. Artists created works meant to be shared across species. Humanity was returning not just as warriors, but as full members of galactic civilization. The balance was delicate. Too much strength and the galaxy would fear them. Too little and the Devourers would win.